Sarah Mitchell adjusted her worn coat as she stepped off the bus in the upscale part of town. At 28, she worked 2 jobs just to keep her small apartment and send money to her younger brother in college. Dating had been the last thing on her mind until her friend convinced her to try one blind date. The man she was meeting, David Harper, was a successful architect in his early 40s, a widower raising his 12-year-old daughter alone. Sarah had been nervous for days, borrowing her roommate's red dress and saving up for a decent pair of shoes. But fate had other plans. The shortcut through the construction site seemed safe enough that morning. She was running late after her shift at the diner. One moment she was carefully navigating the muddy path. The next, a water main burst, sending a wave of muddy water cascading over her. Sarah stood there, frozen in shock. Her borrowed dress was ruined, caked in brown sludge from shoulders to hem. Her carefully styled hair hung in wet, dirty clumps. She looked down at herself and felt tears sting her eyes. She should go home, cancel, make up an excuse. But something made her keep walking toward the café. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was a memory of her late mother saying, "Life tests your character when you're at your lowest, sweetheart." The café door seemed heavier than usual. Sarah pushed through, feeling every eye turn toward her. The pristine interior with its polished tables and well-dressed patrons made her filthy appearance even more glaring. David sat by the window, checking his watch. He was handsome in that mature, distinguished way, his dark hair slightly graying at the temples. He wore a crisp navy shirt that probably cost more than Sarah's weekly paycheck. When he looked up and saw her, Sarah watched his expression change. She waited for the disgust, the excuse, the quick exit. Instead, David stood up immediately. His face showed surprise, yes, but then something else entirely. Concern. "Sarah," he asked gently. "I'm so sorry," she managed, her voice breaking slightly. "There was an accident. A water main. I should have canceled, but I thought—" "Please sit down," David said, pulling out the chair for her despite the mud. "I'll ruin the seat," Sarah protested. David was already removing his jacket. He laid it on the chair without hesitation. "Now you won't," he said simply. Sarah sat slowly, feeling completely out of place. Around them, she could hear whispers, see sideways glances. David sat across from her, meeting her eyes with a warm steadiness that made her throat tight. "Are you hurt?" he asked first. "No, just my pride," Sarah admitted. A smile touched his lips. "Pride is overrated anyway. I should know. I've had mine knocked down more times than I can count." The waitress approached with barely concealed disdain. "Would you like to order or—" "2 hot chocolates, please," David said firmly. "And perhaps a warm towel for the lady?" The waitress hesitated, then nodded and left. "You don't have to stay," Sarah said quietly. "I understand if you want to leave. This isn't exactly the first impression I hope to make." David leaned forward slightly. "Can I tell you something? 3 years ago, my daughter Emma had a school concert. She was so excited. She practiced for weeks. My late wife had passed just a year before, and this was Emma's first big event without her mom there." He paused, his expression distant with memory. "I was in an important meeting, a career-defining project. I almost stayed, almost set my assistant to record it instead. But something made me leave. I raced across town, got caught in traffic, and when I finally got there, I'd missed her performance." Sarah listened, drawn into his words. "I found Emma backstage, crying. She thought I hadn't come because I didn't care. In that moment, I realized something. All my success, my pristine reputation, my careful planning, none of it mattered compared to showing up, really showing up, even when things go wrong." The hot chocolate arrived. David wrapped his hands around the cup. "You could have stayed home," he continued. "You could have made an excuse. Instead, you showed up covered in mud, embarrassed, vulnerable. That tells me more about your character than a perfect outfit ever could. Sarah felt unexpected tears welling up. My mother used to say something similar. She died 5 years ago. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing at everything she taught me. What else did she teach you? David asked gently. To be kind, to work hard, to never look down on anyone trying their best. Sarah managed a small laugh. She cleaned houses for a living. She said she met the truest people in moments when they forgot to pretend. She sounded like she was a remarkable woman. David said she was. Sarah wrapped her own hands around the warm cup. I work at Eddie's Diner on 5th Street, the early shift. Then I do bookkeeping for a small grocery 3 nights a week. I'm saving to finish my accounting degree. I know that's not impressive compared to... It's incredibly impressive, David interrupted quietly. You're building something real. That takes more courage than most people have. They talked for over an hour. David told her about Emma, about learning to braid hair through YouTube videos, about burning dinner regularly and ordering too much pizza. Sarah talked about her brother, her dreams, her mother's old recipe book she still used. The cafe staff had stopped staring. Even the waitress softened, bringing refills without comment. Finally, David said, I have a confession. I was terrified about tonight. Dating after loss is complicated. I kept thinking about what to say, how to act, whether I was ready. And now, Sarah asked, now I'm thinking how glad I am that you showed up exactly as you are, mud and all. Sarah felt something warm bloom in her chest. Not just attraction, though that was there, something deeper, recognition. Would you like to try this again? David asked, maybe somewhere less formal? Emma and I are making pizza Friday night. It usually ends up lopsided and half-burnt, but it's ours. I'd love that, Sarah said softly. As they stood to leave, David offered his arm. Sarah took it, no longer caring about the mud or the stairs. Outside, the evening air was cool and clean. Thank you, Sarah said, for seeing past the mess. David smiled. And in that smile, Sarah saw years of his own struggles, his own moments of feeling inadequate, his own journey through loss toward hope. Thank you, he replied, for showing me that the best things in life are worth showing up for, no matter what. Sometimes, the moments that seem like disasters become the memories we treasure most. Sometimes, being vulnerable opens doors that perfection never could. And sometimes, the right person sees not the mud on your dress, but the courage it took to keep walking forward. If this story touched your heart, please share, and subscribe for more tales of authentic human connection. Leave a comment below sharing a time when someone saw past your surface and recognized your true worth. Your story might inspire someone else today.